It was a party to remember. Rich music, bright lace fabrics, and trays of jollof rice that never seemed to empty. The wedding hall in Lagos was packed with dancers, gossipers, and the smell of grilled chicken. But while champagne glasses clinked, at the far end near the caterer's station, a scene unfolded, one that would trend online before midnight. A woman in torn slippers and a faded wrapper knelt before the servers. Her hands trembled as she begged for leftover food. "Please, just something for my daughter," she whispered. Laughter broke out behind her. "Wait, is that not Vanessa? Vanessa the designer?" someone shouted. Cameras turned, phones went up. The once celebrated fashion queen was now on her knees, begging, not for a job, not for forgiveness, but for leftover rice. The caterer shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to do. Behind her, the bride's mother, Mrs. Cooker, stepped forward, not with help, but with disgust. "How dare you disgrace yourself like this here? What are you doing crawling around like a dog at my daughter's wedding?" The crowd gasped. No one knew why Vanessa was there. But what no one knew, what no one could guess, was how she ended up here. And what was about to unfold one would silence them all. Before the shame, there was glory. Vanessa once ruled the streets of Lagos with her vibrant fashion line, V Designs. Her boutique was the destination for the wealthy and elite. Her dresses adorned the bodies of celebrities, politicians' wives, and brides who wanted to shine. She lived in a duplex with golden lighting, imported rugs, and closets bursting with ankara, lace, and velvet. Her phone never stopped ringing. Orders, invitations, praise. But Vanessa wasn't just successful. She was proud. She mocked those she deemed beneath her, drivers, cleaners, even struggling neighbors. "Why should I mingle with people who don't know what designer perfume smells like?" she once scoffed. Even her younger cousin, Clara, who sold snacks in traffic, wasn't spared. "Can't she learn from me? Must she keep smelling like groundnut oil?" But life has a way of humbling even the most unshakable. It began with whispers of fraud involving her husband Stephen's business. Then came a failed investment that swallowed their savings. Before she could catch her breath, her boutique caught fire in a mysterious blaze. The insurance? Expired. Her landlord? Ruthless. Her friends? Disappeared. In a matter of months, Vanessa went from designer to destitute, from limo rides to trekking with slippers. And yet, the worst hadn't come. Not yet. It was 6 p.m. in the slum-like corner of the city where Vanessa now lived. An uncompleted building with cracked walls, mosquito nets made from torn curtains, and rusted cooking pots that had seen better days. Inside, a little girl sat quietly, hugging her knees. Grace, Vanessa's only child, was barely 7, yet her eyes had learned the silence of hunger. Her stomach growled, but she didn't complain. She just watched her mother patch up the hem of a stranger's old trouser for 300 naira. "Mommy, will there be food tonight?" she whispered. Vanessa's hands paused. Her throat tightened. How do you tell a child there's nothing? Again? She reached into a plastic bowl, lifted the cover, and found only stale Gary and 2 dried pepper flakes. "Drink this. Tomorrow will be better," she said, forcing a smile that barely held. Grace drank. Her lips trembled. "Mummy, can I go play with the neighbor kids tomorrow?" Vanessa hesitated. The neighbors had started gossiping. They called her Madame Ashawo behind her back and told their kids to stay away. She stroked Grace's hair. "Let's see tomorrow, my love." Then, like a sign, loud music erupted from the next street. A wedding party. Vanessa's stomach rumbled. And suddenly, an idea, desperate, shameful, but maybe necessary, crept into her mind. She looked at Grace and knew what she had to do. Vanessa stood in front of the cracked mirror nailed to a wooden pillar. Her eyes, once outlined with gold eyeliner, now looked dull and tired. Her cheekbones were sharper, her arms thinner, but her mind was made up. She wrapped herself in the least torn ankara she owned and tied her hair with an old scarf. She didn't want to look too proud. Humility might earn her pity, but not too dirty either. She didn't want to be chased away like a thief. As she stepped out of the building, Grace tugged at her arm. "Mummy, where are you going?" Vanessa smiled faintly. "To get food, baby. I'll be back soon." The streetlights flickered. Music blasted from loudspeakers in the distance. She followed the sound, her slippers scraping against the dusty road. Onlookers stared. A few recognized her. "Is that not Vanessa?" Someone whispered. What's she wearing like that? Has life dealt with her that much?" She walked faster. Finally, she reached the event center. Cars lined the street. Girls in gear and sequins laughed beside champagne buckets. Waiters danced around with trays of small chops. Vanessa didn't go inside. She walked to the back where the caterers packed leftover coolers. She waited, and then she stepped forward. "Please," she said softly to the caterer. "Do you have any leftover food? For my daughter. She hasn't eaten today." The caterer blinked, startled. Then someone screamed from behind, "Vanessa!" And the shame that would echo across the internet had just begun. The voice was sharp, high-pitched, and laced with malicious delight. Vanessa froze mid-sentence. She didn't need to turn around. She recognized the voice. Deborah, her former client, once her biggest admirer, now her loudest mocker. The crowd of onlookers turned their heads. Conversations halted. Even the music from the DJ's corner seemed to lower its volume as the moment unfolded like a tragic stage play. Deborah stomped forward in her glittering gold gown and towering heels, a wine glass in one hand and a sneer on her face. "What are you doing here? Begging for food?" she said loudly, deliberately drawing attention. "Are you not the same Vanessa who used to charge 80,000 naira for one dress? Now you're here asking for leftover rice like a roadside beggar." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Vanessa's knees wobbled, her lips trembled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Then, another voice joined the scene, this one sharp and disgusted. Mrs. Cooker, the bride's mother. She stormed toward the group, her jewel rising like a crown of pride. "Why is this woman embarrassing us here? Where are the security men? Drag her out." Vanessa bowed her head. Humiliation, like boiling oil, seared her soul. Cameras flashed. Someone began recording a video. Laughter filled the air like cruel drums of mockery. Still, she didn't rise. She whispered, "Please, just a small plate. For my child." But no one heard that part. They only saw the fall of a woman once admired, and laughed as if her pain was entertainment. While the crowd jeered and recorded, someone in the background stood still, eyes locked on Vanessa. Daniel, a calm and observant man in his early 30s, watched silently from across the courtyard. He wasn't dressed like a guest. No glittering agbada, no glass of wine in hand. Just a clean shirt, quiet posture, and eyes filled with something the others had forgotten: compassion. He recognized her immediately. Years ago, Vanessa had helped him, back when he was a struggling intern, too broke to afford a decent outfit for a job interview. He'd walked into her shop by mistake, thinking it was a thrift store. She laughed at first, but when he explained, something shifted in her. She had stitched him a shirt, gave him water, and said, "One day, come back and buy the real thing." He never did, but he never forgot. Now, watching the same woman beg for scraps, his chest tightened. The world had turned on her like she was nothing, but he knew better. He pulled out his phone, not to record, but to send a message to his assistant nearby. "Get her a hot meal, quietly. Make sure she gets home safely, and don't let anyone know it came from me." Daniel wasn't just any guest. He was the CEO of the catering company running the entire event. And tonight, he wasn't just serving food. He was about to serve justice. Silently, Vanessa was still on her knees when a quiet female voice tapped her shoulder. "Madam, please stand up, come with me." It was one of the caterers, her face gentle, her voice low. She didn't mock or sneer, just nodded politely and guided Vanessa toward the back gate. Vanessa's body shook with shame. Her eyes refused to meet the crowd as she was escorted out. Some guests booed, others scoffed, and a few muttered prayers like she was a cursed woman. Behind the compound, a car was waiting. The back seat door was open, and inside sat a steaming plate of jollof rice, fried chicken, plantain, and 2 bottles of water. Vanessa froze. "Is this for me?" The caterer nodded. "Yes, Ma, just eat and rest. Someone asked us to make sure you and your daughter are okay." She didn't say who. Vanessa blinked. Who sent it?" "I don't know," the caterer lied, as instructed. Tears filled Vanessa's eyes as she sat in the car, not knowing if she should eat or cry first. Her hands trembled as she lifted a spoonful to her mouth. Each bite wasn't just food. It was a reminder of her fall. The same rice she once served her wealthy guests was now a gift she had to receive like a beggar. And yet, she ate. Because a mother's pride always comes second to her child's hunger. That night, as she held the warm container against her chest and walked back home quietly, she still had no idea who had seen her, or who was silently pulling strings behind the scenes. Night fell over the city, but the fire of humiliation still burned in Vanessa's chest. She sat on the edge of the old mattress in the corner of her makeshift home, staring into space as Grace devoured the food like she hadn't eaten in days. Vanessa didn't touch hers. She couldn't. Every grain of rice reminded her of the laughter, the cameras, the shouting, and Deborah's cruel voice echoing, "Now you're begging?" Grace looked up, her mouth full. "Mummy, who gave us this food? Is it your friend?" Vanessa forced a smile. "I don't know. Maybe an angel." They both laughed quietly, but it was the kind of laughter that barely covered the pain. Suddenly, a knock at the door, soft but urgent. Vanessa's body tensed. No one ever visited. Not at this hour. Not here. She opened the door slightly and found a brown envelope lying on the ground. She looked around. No one in sight. Inside the envelope were 2 crisp 1,000 naira notes and a handwritten note. "Tomorrow is still yours. Don't give up. A friend." No name. No clue. Just hope. Vanessa gripped the note tightly as tears rolled down her cheeks. She hadn't seen kindness in months. This anonymous stranger, whoever they were, had reminded her that the world still had corners where mercy lived. But who was watching her? And why were they helping? Morning light filtered through the broken window panes. Grace still slept, curled up like a kitten beside her mother. Vanessa hadn't slept much. Her thoughts spun in circles. The food, the money, the note. Someone had seen her. Someone remembered her. She clutched the envelope again, rereading the message. "Tomorrow is still yours. Don't give up. A friend." It didn't sound like pity. It sounded like someone who knew her before all this. That morning, Vanessa decided to take a walk, to clear her mind and maybe pick up some mending jobs around the neighborhood. As she stepped outside, her neighbor Mama Doris, the local gossip, glared at her and hissed, "So you went to disgrace yourself yesterday, eh? Rice that we were eating in peace, you carried yourself to beg like a mad woman." Vanessa said nothing. She walked past with dignity, what little remained of it. As she reached the main road, she noticed a white delivery van parked in front of a small eatery. The logo on the side caught her eye. Delight Catering Services. The name tugged something deep in her memory. That name. She had sewn a uniform with that logo years ago, for a shy, stammering intern named Daniel. Her heart skipped. Could it be? Was Daniel the one behind all this? Vanessa stood frozen in front of the van, her heart pounding like drums in a village square. Daniel. She remembered him well now. That quiet young man with scuffed shoes and a nervous voice who had once wandered into her boutique looking completely lost. He'd been embarrassed, trying to buy a decent shirt for an interview with only 1,000 naira. Instead of laughing at him, as she usually would, she had felt something. Compassion. She tailored him a simple yet clean shirt, polished his shoes herself, and told him to Go and shine. She never saw him again. Until now, maybe. The driver of the van stepped out and caught her staring. Madam, you'd a fine person? Vanessa hesitated. This company. Delight Catering. Do you know Daniel? He runs it, right? The man smiled. Yes, ma. Olga Danielna, our CEO. Very good man. Always they help people. Her heart fluttered. She turned away quickly, overwhelmed by emotion. So it was him. He remembered. But why hadn't he come forward himself? Why help her in secret? That night, back at her little shack, she found another surprise. A sewing machine, old but functional, left just outside her door with a note attached. You once helped me start, now it's your turn, no pride, just purpose. D. Vanessa fell to her knees, clutching the note. For the first time in months, she didn't cry from shame. She cried from grace. That night, Vanessa sat quietly beside the donated sewing machine. Her fingers traced its edges like it was an old friend she had lost in a storm. Dusty memories of satin, silk, and lace flooded her mind. Her eyes welled up, but not with regret, with purpose. She hadn't touched a sewing machine in nearly a year. Not since the fire consumed her boutique and everything she'd worked for. But now it felt like life was whispering. Begin again. The next morning, with trembling hands, she tightened the thread and stitched a small fabric pouch. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Grace clapped with excitement. Mummy, you're sewing again. Vanessa smiled, a rare joy warming her chest. Yes, baby. We're coming back. By noon, she had repaired 2 torn school uniforms for neighbors who once mocked her, but were now impressed with her renewed skills. Word spread fast. By evening, she had received 4 new requests, and tucked safely in the corner of her room, the machine hummed softly like an old melody, reminding her that dignity could be sewn back into torn lives. She didn't know what Daniel's full plan was, or whether she'd ever see him face to face. But this was the first thread in the fabric of her redemption. The streets that once echoed with laughter at Vanessa's downfall began to murmur something new. Admiration. Mama Grace donde sew again? Yes, oh, I hear say her hand still sweet like before. Nawa, even that Mama Doris way laugher that day Don carry cloth go meet her. Vanessa didn't walk with her head bowed anymore. She carried herself with quiet confidence, worn but rising. The same women who once pointed and jeered were now bringing wrappers, school bags, and torn blouses to her doorstep. Even Deborah, yes, the same Deborah who shouted at her at the party, sent her housegirl in secret with a bag of clothes. Vanessa didn't reject it. She took the job, fixed every piece perfectly, and sent it back, with a small note that simply read, "Kindness costs nothing, Deborah." The message stung. Deborah didn't respond, but she didn't mock her again either. Meanwhile, orders kept coming, not just from the neighborhood, but now from across the city. Someone had posted a photo of Vanessa's recent work on social media. The caption read, "From disgrace to grace. Her name is Vanessa." Daniel saw the post from his office window. He smiled. He still hadn't spoken to her directly. But it was time. Time to offer her more than just threads and kindness. It was time to give her a platform. A week passed and Vanessa's little sewing corner had become the talk of the neighborhood. The humming of her machine became a daily melody, and Grace proudly carried her school bag stitched with a bright pink butterfly her mother designed. Then one afternoon, as Vanessa returned from the market with a few yards of fabric tucked under her arm, she found a large white envelope waiting at her doorstep. There was no name on it, no stamp, just her name, handwritten in bold letters. Vanessa. Inside the envelope was a cream-colored invitation card, embossed with gold ink. You are cordially invited to showcase your story and designs at the Women Rise Expo this Sunday. Venue, Royal View Event Center, Victoria Island time, 4 p.m. Dress code, elegant African. Vanessa's hands trembled. The Women Rise Expo? The same one she used to sponsor as a designer? Now, she was being invited. No contact details, no sender, nothing to trace who made this happen. But she didn't need confirmation. She knew it was Daniel. She looked at Grace, who peeked at the card and squealed with joy. "Mummy, you're going to be famous again." Vanessa smiled. Not because of fame, but because she had finally earned something far greater. A second chance. And this time, she would wear her humility as proudly as her best design. The day before the event, Vanessa sat before her sewing machine, staring at the scraps of fabric she had collected over the weeks. None of them matched. Some were faded, others torn. But each piece told a part of her journey. The turquoise sleeve from a neighbor's discarded blouse. The golden trim from an old dress she once designed for a politician's wife. The pink ankara from Grace's baby wrapper. She didn't have enough money to buy new materials, but she had something far more powerful. Vision. And so, she sewed. All through the night, the machine hummed with purpose. Every stitch carried memory, pain, resilience, redemption. By morning, the dress was ready. It wasn't perfect by fashion standards, but it was real, an elegant patchwork of her past and her present. The bodice hugged her frame like dignity restored. The skirt flowed like freedom. As she stepped out into the street, heads turned, mouths opened. Even Mama Doris whispered to her neighbor, "Nawa, she don rise finish." Vanessa took Grace's hand, hailed a bus to Victoria Island and whispered, "Whatever happens today, we show them who we are." Grace beamed. "Queen and princess?" Vanessa nodded, tears in her eyes. "Exactly that." And as they rode into the city, the dress made of broken pieces fluttered in the wind, a symbol that even from ashes, something beautiful can rise. The Royal View Event Center sparkled like royalty itself, draped in gold linens, bright chandeliers, and the buzz of women from every corner of Lagos, dressed in their finest. The Women Rise Expo had returned after a long pandemic break, and the air was thick with inspiration. Vanessa stood outside the entrance, her hands damp with nerves. She adjusted her handmade dress, took Grace by the hand, and walked in. The security man at the gate hesitated. "Sorry, Ma, can I see your—" But before he could finish, a coordinator rushed over. "You're Vanessa, right?" she asked, breathless. "Come, you're one of our keynote presenters. Your story has inspired hundreds online already." Vanessa blinked. "But I didn't submit anything." The woman smiled. "Someone else did. A man named Daniel." Vanessa's heart skipped. Inside the hall, the audience was already seated. Her name appeared on the projector screen. Vanessa Obasi, From Ashes to Ankara, How I Stitched My Way Back to Life. Her mouth went dry, but then Grace squeezed her hand. "Mummy, go and shine." Vanessa stepped on stage. The light hit her face. The crowd fell silent. And then she spoke. Not with pride, but with truth. "I once thought I was successful because I had money. But I was wrong. Real success is surviving after people leave. And still standing." The hall erupted in applause. And somewhere in the back, hidden in the crowd, Daniel watched with pride. He didn't need credit. He had done what he came to do. As Vanessa walked off stage to a standing ovation, her body felt light, like she was floating above her old self. Dozens of women lined up to shake her hand, some crying, others whispering, "You're so strong. You gave me hope. Thank you for not giving up." But in the corner of the room, two familiar faces waited, ones she hadn't expected to see. Stephen, her ex-husband, and Deborah, her former client, turned tormentor. Stephen approached first, his face covered in a forced smile. "Vanessa," he began, I watched your presentation. I didn't know things got that bad. I left because I was scared." Vanessa raised a hand, calm but firm. "You left because I fell, but someone else helped me rise. And I've already forgiven you, but I've also outgrown you." Stephen's face dropped. Then came Deborah, her eyes twitching nervously. I sent my girl to you with clothes. I hope they fit. I didn't know you were serious again. Vanessa smiled gently, but her voice held steel. You mocked me when I had nothing. But now you want a seat at my table. Don't worry, I set extra plates for those who doubted me. Deborah shifted awkwardly, unable to reply. As Vanessa turned away, she felt no bitterness, only freedom. She had faced her past, and it no longer had power over her. Now she was walking fully into her purpose. And Grace, watching from behind the curtain, whispered to herself, "That's my mummy." As the event wound down, guests mingled, music played softly, and cameras flashed for photos. Vanessa stood by the refreshment table, quietly sipping Zobo when a deep, familiar voice spoke behind her. "You still make magic with your hands." She turned. Daniel. There he stood, no longer the shy, stammering intern she once knew, but a confident, successful man in a clean-cut suit, eyes warm with respect. Vanessa's lips parted in surprise. "It was you, all along." He smiled. "I owed you. That shirt you stitched for me. I wore it to the interview that changed my life. I've never forgotten." She looked at him, speechless. "You believed in me before I believed in myself." Daniel continued. "Now it was my turn." "But you didn't have to do all this," she whispered. "I didn't do it out of pity, Vanessa. I did it out of gratitude and admiration. You didn't just survive. You rebuilt yourself with grace." Tears formed in her eyes. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a contract envelope. "I want to sponsor your fashion brand under my foundation. Your story is powerful. Let's build a workshop that trains women across Lagos." Vanessa took the envelope with shaking hands. This was no charity. This was legacy. And this time she would rise, not alone, but with an army of women beside her. Weeks passed and a new signboard stood tall in the heart of Lagos mainland, the House of Grace, fashioned by Vanessa. Underneath it read, "In partnership with the Daniel Adedeji Foundation." The building was modest but proud, a renovated warehouse with sewing machines lined like soldiers ready for war. Women from every background, widows, single mothers, street hawkers, even former housemaids, came to learn, sew, and earn. Vanessa stood at the center of it all, her Ankara head wrap tied boldly, giving instructions, guiding hands, and wiping tears when needed. Her presence was no longer just a designer's, it was a mother's, a leader's, a witness to what rising from the ashes looked like. Grace ran around the place like a princess, already cutting small patterns for her dolls and whispering, "One day, I'll be like Mummy." People who once gossiped now sent their daughters to Vanessa's workshop. TV stations covered her story. Blogs wrote headlines like, "From begging to boss, how Vanessa rose again." But Vanessa never let the fame enter her heart. Each day before opening the workshop, she knelt in the corner and whispered a prayer. "May I never forget where I came from, and may I never return there again." And every time she rose, she did so with a deeper strength, stitched from grace, pain, and second chances. One warm Saturday afternoon, Vanessa stood outside the workshop looking up at the sky. The clouds moved gently, and the sound of laughter echoed from within. Women learning, sewing, healing. It had been months since the day she begged for food. Now she had become a symbol, not of fashion, but of resilience. That day she received an unexpected message, a wedding invitation. A young lady named Lizzie, one of the students in her workshop, was getting married and wanted Vanessa to design her gown. Tears filled her eyes. She had come full circle. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Vanessa and Grace visited the old event hall where her shame had once played out. The music was gone, the lights dim, the parking lot nearly empty. Grace asked softly, "Mummy, is this where they laughed at you?" Vanessa nodded, holding her daughter close. "But now," Grace smiled, "they clap for you." Vanessa chuckled, eyes glistening. "Yes. But it's not about their claps, my love. It's about who I became after the silence. She turned to walk away, but not with her head bowed this time. With each step, her heels clicked on the pavement, not as a beggar, but as a queen. And somewhere, deep inside her, she knew. The ashes had become her crown. Months turned to a year. Vanessa's workshop expanded to 3 locations across Lagos. She was now invited to speak at women's conferences, business seminars, and churches, not as a fashion designer, but as a testament to survival. One day, as she prepared for a television interview, she sat in front of a mirror, one not cracked or dusty, but framed in gold. The reflection staring back was no longer a broken woman, but a rebuilt one. The TV host asked her, "If you could go back to that moment when you begged for leftover food at the party, what would you say to yourself?" Vanessa smiled softly, eyes moist. "I'd say, get up, Queen. You are not finished. You're just being reshaped." The world clapped. But beyond the applause, her greatest reward was watching women she once trained open their own shops, feed their children, and live without begging. As for Daniel, he remained her quiet partner, never demanding spotlight, never taking credit. Their friendship blossomed into something deeper, not rushed, not forced, just 2 people who knew what it meant to rise again. On Grace's 8th birthday, Vanessa sewed her daughter a flowing gown with one word embroidered across the chest, "Survivor." And when Grace twirled in front of the mirror, she asked, "Mummy, what's a survivor?" Vanessa knelt, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Someone who walked through the fire and came out wearing it like a crown." Moral lessons: never mock anyone's downfall. You don't know their tomorrow. Humility may break you, but it will also rebuild you. Kindness is never wasted. It may return in your darkest hour. True beauty is not in clothes or wealth, but in how you rise after falling. Dear viewers, you just heard a story that carries a powerful lesson, one that could change someone's life, open a mind, or heal a heart. But if you walk away without liking, sharing, or subscribing, it's like silencing the voice of our ancestors who passed down these tales. Don't let their wisdom fade. Don't be the reason the next person never hears this message. Like, share, subscribe. Let the story live on. Thank you for watching.